Hello, everybody. I'm Robert Franz, music director of the Windsor Symphony Orchestra, and I am thrilled today to be here speaking with cellist Tommy Mesa. Tommy, welcome to the Windsor Symphony.
Thanks. I'm so glad to be here. I can't wait to come meet the orchestra and to meet the audience and to dive into this wonderful piece.
So, Tommy, tell us a little bit about what it's like to play a concerto with an orchestra. I mean, we obviously see cellists in our orchestra all the time, but to actually, and I know that you play in a number of groups, chamber ensembles and orchestras, but actually, what is it like to sort of get out of that mold and get in front of the orchestra? How does that feel? Bring us into your world.
Yeah, actually, Robert, I don't do a lot of chamber music and orchestral playing. It's mostly just solo work. So I've been doing a lot of that in the last few years, mostly recitals and concertos. And so that's kind of my bread and butter. It's where I live. And so the idea that it's a kind of playing that you need to be larger than life in when you play. And as a cellist, of course, the idea that you're filling a space with a singular instrument means that you got to really use your body in an efficient way and throw yourself into the instrument. So you think of wonderful legends like Jacqueline Dupre. The kind of playing that she does is just entirely about gravity and throwing yourself into the instrument. And so that's how I teach, and that's how I approach the instrument on stage as well, is just being able to give your all. And even when you're playing softly, that it's done in a way that it's incredibly focused. And that everything is exaggerated as far as accents and sforzatos. Everything that is emphatic is done in a way that's extreme, because that's what translates to the back of the hall, to the last row. For me, being in that role, since I began studying the instrument was always a dream. And the fact that it's come, into a reality in the last several years has been an incredible thing. And, one of the things that I love the most is exploring new music. And the wonderful composer, Jocelyn Morlock, this piece has not been played very often, maybe only one other time. And this was the premiere. I think it was with Vancouver Symphony Orchestra and with a good friend of hers named Ariel Barnes. So this piece has a legacy. And in this particular case, a somewhat sad one to know that she's not around anymore. And I'm elated to be diving into this piece because it's in a sense, quite literally diving into her mind. And the name Lucid Dreams, I think, is going to become very clear to everybody as they hear this piece.
Well, I can't wait until we perform it together, until our audience gets to experience it as well. So you mentioned one thing that I want to sort of deep dive with you on, and that is playing the instrument itself. Can you tell us the story of how you started on the cello? Yeah. I hear that there was a little bit of a clerical error that occurred.
A clerical error is very accurate. And in fact, clerical meaning I was the error. I was the one who did not know that orchestra didn't have drums in it in middle school. And so I arrived the first day of middle school thinking that I wanted to play the drums, and I picked orchestra, and of course there was no drums in the orchestra. And so I went home and I told my mom, and she was like, okay, we're going to try to get you into, band where the drums are. So we went to the registrar, and of course the class was totally full and I couldn't switch, and I was very upset. So I had to stay in orchestra, and I started playing the violin because I had a crush on a girl who played violin. So of course I had to play violin, give myself the best shot. But that didn't work out. And then I ended up making friends who played cello. And so then I started playing cello. So a major error that turned into a career, which is such a wonderful thing to remember, and to think that it's gone this far and that it's become my life is very funny. It's like this big joke.
Well, definitely an amazing career it has created, and you have created, because in 2016 you were the first place prize winner in the Sphinx competition. And we here in Windsor have a very special place in our heart for the Sphinx organization, since it's just right across the river from us. Will you tell us a little bit about the organization and about what winning that prize meant to you?
Yeah, I mean, Sphinx organization is, whenever I'm there, I can see you guys right across the river. I can see the building. I'm like, oh, that's the place. Like this last February, I was there for a few days playing with Ann Arbor Symphony Orchestra. And I could see, I was in the hotel and I was like, that's Windsor. I could have made me very excited. So Sphinx organization, very close to my heart. And so many friends and so many colleagues built from that. It's like a big tree, that organization, with all these wonderful little branches that have different components, educational components, performance components, and also any kind of grants that you want for any project that you desire, that you dream about, you can apply for this. And so it's a national arts organization that promotes diversity in the arts for Black and Latinx musicians. And they work as hard as they possibly can to make all of those dreams happen. And so in 2016, I did win that competition, being a Cuban. My dad came to the United States in 1962 in the wave, Cubans who came to the U.S. And he has lived there his whole life. And so I'm first generation. And actually just went back to Cuba for the first time this past year. So that was a wonderful thing to do, to discover more of my roots. But I am always happy to do things with Sphinx. And I'm during the year, I have about 25 concerts with Sphinx Virtuosi. And that's a small chamber ensemble of about 18 people who come together and play chamber orchestra works. So that's my exposure, my only exposure during the year to chamber music and orchestral playing. And I adore it, because we just have such a great time diving into this music of minority composers. And it's been such a treat through them to explore new music. And this is a lot of the reason why I'm so passionate about music that's written today or close to today, because of all the opportunities that Sphinx has allowed me to jump on top of and to commission as well. So I commissioned a work by Jessie Montgomery, a wonderful concerto that I've been able to play in a lot of places. And she's just an absolutely incredible friend and colleague and composer. So just to circle back to Jocelyn's concerto, it makes me extra excited, because I know that she experienced the world that's around us. And so my passion for new music continues in that way, inside and outside of the Sphinx organization.
Well, Jessie Montgomery is definitely a friend of the Windsor Symphony Orchestra. We, during COVID, actually performed her piece Strum, and she did an interview with me just like this, and we spent some time together. And she is an incredible person. And I've listened to the recording of you playing her piece, which is just spectacular. Of course, tell us a little bit about this cello that you play on. It's a pretty special instrument.
It's a special instrument, and I'm very lucky to have it. And the sponsor, who has become a friend and just a wonderful supporter of my career, is Roger Dubois. And a lot of Canadian musicians have instruments by him. I'm sure you're aware of this. And I mean, it's just, he is a collector, a major supporter of young artists. And I was able to get this instrument from him for the time being. And it's made by Niccolo Galliano in 1767. And an unbelievably powerful instrument in every possible way, every range, low, middle, and high. And I just love the look of it. It's a little bit reddish, and it's very powerful. And I adore it. And I'm just so grateful to have it.
Do you have a sense, when you have an instrument that old, do you have a sense of where it's played before, what kind of music it's performed, and kind of where it's been?
I wish I could talk to it and figure it out. Like, oh, tell me about your life.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. I'm sure it has a lot of stories, a lot of war stories, as they say. I don't know a lot about it, to be honest with you, as far as the history. Maybe at some point I'll have dreams about it, some lucid dreams about where it's been. But it's very clearly, these instruments that are very fine usually have gone through some interesting times, and I wish I knew more about the history. Yeah.
Well, I think there's something really special, regardless of the facts, of playing an instrument that has been in the hands of great cellists for hundreds of years, literally,
Yeah.
and making music in that way.
Sure.
Well, Tommy, I just want to say I really appreciate you spending some time with me, and I really do appreciate the effort that you make to bring a voice to living and modern composers. I think it's really, really important. And I think for our audience to hear you perform this Jocelyn Morlock concerto will be really a special event. So thank you so much for joining me today, and we look forward to seeing you in March.
I'm so looking forward to it. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Robert.